And then it's like they come to first year university and it's like, okay, here's your assignment. Please find peer-reviewed articles on JSTOR, submit it. And people are like, what is it? What the fuck is a computer? Like, not that,
Yeah.
but like you have learners who have gone their entire schooling system, not even touching a computer. Then they come to university and that gap is so huge. And Aiden says they struggle, bruh. Some people must do assignments on their phones using the Microsoft Word app. Like, and then they don't even have their own phones. They must wait till their mothers come home so they can use the phone. That's bad, bruh. He was saying also the lecturers are a bit insensitive because they're so used to, especially the older ones, it's just like they assume you know the internet, how to use it. It's like people are quoting from Wikipedia and Aiden's like, no, bruh. That you can't like but also then people don't know like how to use a computer, like how to put a presentation together, how to do like a Google Docs if they're doing group work, like simple stuff.
Yeah, because you didn't have access to that in high school. You didn't have access to that.
So not only must you worry about your course now you must learn how to learn the tools. Like,
yes,
it's sad, bro. And now
when
you still
just write your assignment on a piece of paper and then you hand it in.
Yeah, and you're still hustling on campus, so like there's not even space for like a part-time gig, part-time job, or teacher assistant. And
yeah, guys. Except, okay, wait. So before I dropped off, I asked MK if he didn't sleep because he got like the eyes of a sloth today, bro.
I don't know what's happening. I think I didn't have my iron tablets today, but I did sleep.
Do you have a cat? You look like you have a cat.
2 guinea pigs and 3 fish.
And 2 feral children.
and a yeast infection.
Wait, I'm actually gonna go drink it now. Keep talking.
Okay.
Like 80% of the workforce are in that position. How many people actually work a job that they love and enjoy, that they get up in the morning? It's like, except Hendrik, you know. But I mean, like, yeah, but so obviously I'm speaking from a place of privilege, but I just don't want my kids to see their dad go through this thing. I was reading this thing of like, as it was a study that showed that kids would rather prefer parents who are in careers that are happier, than have more contact time with them, than parents who are in jobs that they hate and they can see it and they see them all the time. Not too sure if that makes sense, because you become a more vibrant, joyous person.
Yeah. I think makes sense. I don't know. I think that's real, bro. And yes, on the one hand, it is like from a position of privilege to say I don't want to do this thing that's making me unhappy, but it's also like, it's your health, it's your family well-being. There's so many elements to it that, you know, yes, it's from a point of privilege, but it's also from a point of like self-preservation and survival at some point as well.
I would like to ask you about, sorry, I think we're just going into a topic here. I want to ask you about, because you're the union guy. If you're listening, Walton is very much an active member in his union on campus with the grad students. And of late, they've been making some good moves and some noise. They've been vocal in certain changes, and some shit has actually been done. So big ups to you, bro, and everyone at the grad union at Brown. I wanted to ask you, because I kept thinking about these companies that foster staff and the staff, big, like you can have Tesla warehouses, Amazon, all these things are now going next into the Peloton situation where they laid off 2,000 600 odd employees literally overnight. that should be, but before you enter the world of work at a university level, whether it's in your last year, there should be a module or a thing on unionizing, regardless of what level you are. You might be doing your MBA or your management course. You still should know why a union is vital for the employees that are probably going to be below you, right? Ground floor. Because what you always have is like, management is there to serve the organization, right? Protected, HR as well. And the staff should have representation, okay?
Yeah.
But I think if that is taught, because why is it always that people are learning about unions only when they need to know about it? Like at that late stage, like at a later stage, whereas young, like it should be vital, especially in the trade. If you're at CPUT and you're doing plumbing, you're doing mechanical, you're doing all these things, artisanal things that you're probably going to be in a warehouse, you're probably going to be in a factory, that you should know, hey guys, this is an option, because the corporations won't spare money in trying to convince you that unionizing is bad. They will spend a shitload to try and. So I wanted to know what your thoughts are, Wilton, on union education as a precursor or like a preventative measure before entering the work of world business, the world. You know.
So, I mean, I think there's one simple response to this, and then there's probably like layers and layers under that. The simple response is that institutions don't want to educate people, because then it means they have a workforce that is informed about their workers' rights, about, fair labor practices, rights for worker parents, and all of these things. So I think, like, on the one hand, it's not in the interest of corporations and institutions, but also it's also not in the favor of the state to really push an education around unions. I think it's absolutely vital, though. Like, I think you're 100% right in that it's vital that we learn about unions in the same way that we should be learning about how the hell does taxes work at school level, right? Like, we need to know these kinds of things, so that when it comes to being out there and to be part of those structures, we at least have a baseline understanding of how they work. So what I've encountered here in the States at Brown, but at other institutions as well, is a largely one-sided education on what a union is, what a union does, how a union functions in society. And that one side is very much like the side of corporation, the side of institution, the side of capitalism, which is like, no, we are a family. We don't need unions. Unions only get in the way. They don't serve to help the workers. They only serve to create tension and all of these things.
Sorry to butt in, but I like that phrase. Oh, we have family. We run out. But because
we look after one another.
But does a dad kick the children out the house when he loses his job or when times are tough? No, bruh. We all hustle. There was one
a few months ago that Brau fired people on, I think it was like some kind of travel agency.
Yeah. Zoom.
He fired hundreds of people on a Zoom call, bruh. Like, collectively.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be an employee of our corporation tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So sign off and delete this evening.
We are family here, but then family. But when times are tough, then you let family go. No, bruh. Like, I don't like that. Like, also, I don't want to be part of a family. I want to be part of a company. I have a family.
I have a family.
Those Peloton
Okay.
O's, as part of their severance package, they got a subscription to Peloton. Like,
Like, why?
I can't
would
pay my
even do
rent.
that?
I can't pay rent with the subscription.
Right. Like, why would I even want to like look at that shit another day in my life after all of this, bro?
Yeah, man. I don't know, MK. What's your thoughts on preemptive? Because it's, for me, it's all like in my life, I've always had to stumble on these things when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Like with finances, with tax, with like contractual stuff.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I didn't know that. Hey, let me find out quickly, or like, let me try. So like preemptive education, kind of what you say, gives a baseline, gives like a kind of, okay, more or less these things are at your disposal legally within the country that you live in. Like, you are
I
allowed
will
to.
say, just before MK jumps in, I will say that I think South Africa is like, in a lot of ways, South Africa is far ahead of other countries in terms of these kinds of conversations. Because like union stuff is in the public discourse.
Yeah.
Like, of course, we have like antagonistic relationships between corporations and institutions and unions, and between unions themselves. We see it with the teachers' unions. Often there's like a lot of tension between these different unions, but at least it's part of the conversation since we were kids already. I don't know if it's like this for everybody, but I think for us, the three of us, and Aiden and a lot of other people, and I think for like most poor Black people, unions are always part of the conversation somewhere because of the anti-apartheid struggle, the post-apartheid moment, all of that. But anyway, sorry, I just wanted to insert that there. Like, so what are your thoughts, MK? Like,
so my perspective on this is very much the same as the three of you, where we grew up with unions in our vicinity. Like, I would go to SATU meetings with my mom, and I would understand that, okay, cool, this is a thing where the teachers might work for the government, but there's this group of people that look after what the teachers need, basically, in that working space. But from my perspective now, working in the media, like from being a journalist, writing the stories, and from now being the one that reads the stories to the people, there's almost a shift now in the last 10 years or so, I would say, from unions being a necessity to unions in the public eye very often being seen as a nuisance. And I think that it is based on the fact that, and it's necessary. Marches, protests, and strikes are tools that a union uses, but the way that it's become framed, it's an inconvenience.
Yeah.
It's something that stalls the machine from working. So, for instance, if COSATU decides they're going to march today, that means that there's going to be maybe 1,000 more extra people on the train, and people are going to say, oh no, but that was such an inconvenience, and that's going to have a negative impact on how unions are perceived. And also this, now that the internet is what it is, even 10 years ago, it isn't what it has become now, where people live their complete lives online and share everything that they feel, and whoever you might be, it gets taken as valid. Your opinion gets taken as fact, as a proper lived experience, right? And now unions are not necessarily vilified, but it's almost a shameful thing to be part of a union, but it's never outright said. Because in South Africa, unions are for people that work labor, right?
Yeah.
That is the perception. You don't have a union for people that are white collar. You don't have a union for people that work in the media, even though they are, but they're not out there.
Wasn't there a big strike by actors, SABC actors, not so long ago, or quite a 2 years ago? And they
2 or 3 years ago.
They have a union, performing arts, or
performing arts unions. There's writers unions.
Because they weren't paying like actors from like Isidingo,
Yeah.
Generations, I remember, was a
yeah,
big
Generations,
one.
Muvhango, and
That's
they
why
all,
they had to switch to the new Generations, and most of
Yeah.
that initial cast left and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But look here,
So
I
that's
wanted
like,
to. Sorry,
Yeah, go.
God. No, I wanted to say, like, I think that in the post-apartheid moment, I think the fact that COSATU is in a tripartite alliance with the Communist Party and the ANC, I think that is also a major part, plays a major part in like public opinion waning in relation to unions. I mean, I think there's like there are unions that are doing that have done interesting work, and especially in the lead up to Jacob Zuma leaving the presidency, I think like NUMSA was doing interesting stuff. The mine workers union and the metal workers union were doing interesting stuff. But I think COSATU is the Congress of South African Trade Unions. It's like an umbrella body for a lot of unions that a lot of unions kind of report to and organize with, and so on, just for the international audience that needs context. I think a major problem is that a union that is supposed to be representing masses of people is now in a relationship with the ruling party of the state. And I think like that just doesn't track, that doesn't make sense. If you think about it in terms of like what the function of a union is, there's a clear like conflict of interest there, right? Like, so I think I think part of the public opinion waning on unions in part also has to do with stuff like that. So in addition to what you mentioned, like the inconvenience, stopping services from happening, filling the trains, filling the taxis, kind of clogging the city center when it's a protest day, stuff like that. There's also the other kind of like diplomatic, political side of it.
Because those politicians have business interests.
And like when Vavi was president of COSATU, when Zwelinzima Vavi was president, he acted as a politician, not as a unionist. He was there as I don't know. He was there as a political figure more than a figure that was vested in the interest of working class people. I think he will say a lot of stuff that makes sense to working class masses, but like I think when it comes down to it, you can't be in bed with the ANC and also say that you are, that your concern is with the black working class of the country. The majority is black working class of the country.
Because that's what the union should do. Above all, it should protect and act in the interest of who it represents. And that is a massive conflict of interest if it's still in bed with the government or ruling party. Yeah, man.
Look, COSATU is still a powerful body. They still have almost 2 million members, right? Like the next union down from them in terms of membership is, I think, FEDUSA with like 500,000. So like COSATU still has major pull and major capacity to mobilize people. But I think so much of the discourse is I don't know. I think it's like really worn out. I also think that a lot of these people, and I'll say a lot of these guys because most of them are old men, are like Marxist-Leninists in the very Marxist-Leninist sense of the word, that the proletariat will rise up. The ones that are serious unionists are like they serious unionists in that way, and they're very fixed in that way. And I think there's a different way to be anti-capitalist and pro-black and pro-worker than just being a Marxist-Leninist.
Yeah, that doesn't
that hard
really.
line, that hard line doesn't make sense anymore. You know, it made sense in the kind of like revolutionary struggle moment on the continent, but like where we at now, I don't know.
It doesn't work with the reality.
Yeah. We have to take lessons from it, but we can't desire to adhere to that as an authoritative like theory or something, you know. Like we have to be able to think further, think deeper than.
And that's, I think like, you know, you guys, like, you know, that I'm very much rooted into practicality of things, right? And that's exactly what you said, Walton, is that a lot of these things are niceties. They like nice in speeches and written down, and they had bearing. And I think to go beyond that, with having those type of ideologies and that type of politics as a core, but then veer off, like take it into the next part now is what's needed. But they can't just keep talking, like the rhetoric has been stagnated, and like, okay, anti-capitalist, Leninist, Marxist, cool, that's where you come from, now what? Like, and I suppose that's where like the EFF kind of took off from there, is like practical, get jobs for the youth, get people earning, I mean, I have my gripes with them as well, so much so, like, you know, but they saw a gap in the rhetoric and kind of went there. It's just like unions need to be more practical and act in favor of who they represent, because, I mean,
yeah. So I will say like the most interesting union for me right now is, and this is like my bias because of the research that I'm currently doing for the PhD, but there's a Black women's farm workers union in the Western Cape called Sikula Sonke, and they are like, I don't even know if they have like 2,000 members, or, you know, yeah, I don't even know if they have that many members, but the fact that they are this like self-organized, self-actualized union of farm working women who are concerned with not just with labor conditions, but the social conditions that are produced by the labor conditions. So like, you know, the legacy of the DOP system, domestic violence, like they thinking about all of those things.
Yeah.
And also just the fact that it's like Black women founded, Black women led in a world that is so dominated by old men oftentimes. So I think there are ways in which unions are concerned with the practical and lived experience of people, but like I think these like the massive unions are more leaning towards being political parties than representatives of the constituents that they say they represent. So my thing is like tap into these smaller unions, see what they're doing, take lessons from them, and like try and transpose it to different situations, and you know, see what comes. There's a woman in what part of the Western Cape is this now? Anyway, her name is Margarita Prince, and she is the shit, bruh. She's a long time farm laborer, her husband was a farm worker, and she decided that she's just gonna take a piece of this boer's land and plant her own vegetables and fruit, because they were earning like less than 90 rand a day, like no, yeah, less than 80 rand a day at one point, and then they got a raise to like just over 90 rand a day. So they couldn't afford the bare necessities. So she was like, fuck that, there's a piece of land. I know there's a piece of land over there that's like just sitting there. I'm gonna take that and till it and plant my own fruit and vegetables there. And if you want to say something, then I'm gonna cause cut. So they caused cut. They had a strike. They fucking in the Dorans. So like this was like
is that what kicked it off when there was like heavy farm worker protests?
That wasn't what kicked it off, but that was part of the discourse. What kicked it off was the violence that is acting on their laborers, beatings and killings. And we know the story already. People being dragged behind bakkies and all that shit. So that's what kicked it off, like escalated it. But what sustained it was discourse around like farm workers' rights and stuff like that. And she was one of the people. I can't wait to come home so I can go talk to her, because I think she's fucking amazing.
It seems like the strongest unions, the most influential and strongest unions now are women-led, which is great. And it's something that should be noted by the bigger unions.
Yeah.
Need more women in these positions, actually.
Yeah, and I think it's like, I just feel like the more I learn about mutual aid, the more I learn about direct action and stuff like that, very like anarchist principles, but the more I learn about it, the more I see how those kinds of people, like these women who self-organized on the farms to like take pieces of land and make their own like mini farms on their workplace. I don't know, like this actual mutual aid happening in a very direct and real way. Not in a theoretical kind of abstracted sense of the thing. So I don't know. We just need to like pay attention to people and like take lessons from them as much as we can. I think for us,
observe and learn.
For the four of us who are also working towards collectively owning a piece of land, I think those people are the people that we're gonna need to be taking lessons from. And if we are gonna bring people in to work with us, not for us, but to work with us on the farm, then we have to be able to also say like, oh, Masrita Prince, or Sikula Sonke, they are the lessons that we can take from how they mobilized, organized, radicalized their people. And this is how we can do it collectively as well to move forward. Because I feel like the assumption is always like, nah, I have to look after me and my own, which doesn't make any sense to me.
But that I never understood. Why is it either or? Why is it not and?
Right.
Like, why is it? Are you Democrat or Republican, or are you this or that? Why is it? I'm not saying you can be both, but what I'm saying is like, I need to look after me and my own. Okay, so does everyone else, but now you can also, and then they will look after you. Like, I don't understand this idea and how it got into our heads of this individualism push towards like, no, I must try and I'm doing this for just me and my family. I'm looking after me and my family. Yes, you can. I mean,
even just the idea of like a living minimum wage, right? Like a living wage. If you think about it, like on the most basic level, a living wage means that the company, I make sure that my employee is able to pay rent, buy food for the family, pay electricity, water, whatever it might be, right? In the long run, does that not just cause a healthy ecosystem where I as a business will succeed even further? Because that person will then have X amount of extra expendable income that is not necessarily savings, that they can literally just blow on the month. They can buy this product, buy that product, whatever.
They don't
that
have
means
to.
that in the end, you get more money back.
I don't understand. It's a healthier, they will have a healthier family and won't have to count, turn coins, turn cents for medical stuff, for like, and that's what I never understood as well. You want to say you were family. Okay, well, you feed your child just the basic nutritional requirements per day, the minimum nutritional, minimum nutritional wage, right? You know what I mean? You're not going to give them a bit of extra so they can have enrichment, right? You're going to teach your child ABC because that's what they need to learn. You're not going to read them stories or like elaborate. And this is what I think when people say, oh, we're like a family, you're not treating people like family, because family look not just what you need, but what can we give you that you can now grow and excel, and like a feedback, like something as simple like universal basic income, livable wage, a livable wage where everything at home is taken care of. And now they don't need to worry about shit at home to the point that they used to. And they will be better partners, employees. They will actually have space in their psyche and in their mind and emotionally to now say, okay, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's taken care of. Okay, now I as a person, this seems like an organization where I can grow. And I smart this and I'm gonna put in now. But I don't understand that.
But you know, just to make an example of like our situation here in the States at Brown University. So we, you know, as PhD students, you're working like 60, 70, easy 80 hours a week because you work every day and like constantly. Depending on your program, you might be working more. If you like work in a lab, if you're in neuroscience, you might be working even more than that, right? Because it's teaching responsibility, TAing responsibilities, it's your own writing and research, it's all the other activities of the department and all of the, you know, conferences and all the shit that you have to do. So in essence, we are earning less than minimum wage at Brown University, at like one of the top 30 wealthiest institutions in the USA at the moment. And it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would you want a miserable, overworked, underpaid population of people in your institution? It just makes no sense. So like, our union did the maths on how the pay is being broken down, and they have these, like, Brown justifies paying us the way they do by completely undervaluing how much like rent costs in Providence, how much groceries cost per month, healthcare, all of these things. And people are like, you know, I've made debt to pay medical bills because the healthcare isn't comprehensive. It doesn't cover everything. So like my mental health care, for instance, hasn't been completely taken care of. So I had to like fork out money for like a 2-day hospital trip for treatment. I'm still in my 3rd year. I'm still paying a bill from my 1st year because of their logic of like, no, it's enough money. They just grad work. They just grad students. They know, you know, they don't need that much. But it's like, bruh, we are literally earning less than what is considered the minimum wage. Now that minimum wage doesn't even, it's the minimum acceptable amount, but it's not the minimum
legal.
amount
it's
needed
legal
to actually live in this country, right?
It's legal.
You can make rent in some states, but in most states, not a damn chance, bro.
I wanted to say that brings me to the next part. Okay, so you spoke about justifying paying grad students below minimum wage. How do organizations justify paying top management, a CEO, whatever, the amounts that they do? By that I mean, like, do you like, if I'm a CEO of a company, right? Say now I start a company, why automatically do I need to earn more? My expenses aren't more. My, like, what justify, if it's like, imagine they played sport like that, if you, where your salary was determined not on your achievement or like your skill, but on your position, right? So goalkeepers, literally, that's the amount that you get. Like, why, just because you at the top, that must you be at the top of the pay scale, just because your skill set is different? Like, the whole organization revolves around the workforce. Without the workforce, you don't have operation. So I'm saying is, do they justify it by saying he's more qualified? More qualified in what? Like, he doesn't know how to weld, but we have 60, 70 welders in your workshop. Like, your skill set is different. It doesn't mean that automatically you have to earn 20, 30 times more. It just means your skill set lies somewhere else. Leaders, what they like to call themselves, when you lead, it doesn't mean now all of a sudden you must be paid more. That's just your skill set. You have good leadership. Other people are good at following a directive and executing. That's it. That's their skill set. Doesn't mean now what our society has put these people on the top because of leadership attributes, and then automatically attached monetary value to that. The bro who was ex-CEO of Spotify is now taking over Peloton, right? So they can replace CEOs. Your skill set is not unique. Your skill set's not unique, you know? So why justify like that pay scale based on that title? That meaning that title being so much more. Like, obviously you will earn more. I'm not saying there's an issue with that. What I'm saying is that don't tell me you have to let go so many people, but you're still catching a bonus. And like that for me is like, oh, where's the family now? Sorry guys, sorry kids, daddy got fired. Here's your bread and tea. I'll eat my KFC in the room. Sorry, man. It's only a streetwise too, though. So, times are tough. Like, like
what does the CEO do?
Solve problems. That's all they do. Issues. Executive orders. That's just like operations.
Yeah.
It's basically it's basically the captain of the ship. But doesn't mean
so the CEO oversees the other chiefs, right?
Yes, the CFO is the chief financial officer, CMO is the chief marketing officer, CTO is chief technology officer. So depending on your company, you would have those heads of those departments there, and they will chat together and whatever. It's just decision making on a level that's the buck stops with them. So it's like decision making.
I've always viewed it as like a prestige position. Like, it's only there to give value to the company, right? Like that's like, it's a name brand thing. Like, if I'm able to poach X person CEO, then it gives so much prestige to the company.
Yeah, but it depends what company. You can start a company now and call yourself the CEO. If you can be CEO of Andriek Limited Entertainment, what does that mean? But if you're CEO of Google, people know like, oh shit, okay, it's just
yeah. To respond to your initial comment regarding this, Lee, there's nothing that justifies these people earning the salaries that they do. The president of the university where I'm at, Brown University, in 2018, her reportable income, this is what we know, what we're allowed to know, was over $1.2 million a year, bro. Like, that's $100,000 a month. Like, you can buy a house every month in South Africa for that money. Like, a liquor house every month for a whole year.
That's a 1.4 mil house in South Africa times
Easy,
40.
easy,
Look,
easy.
yeah, okay, earn that.
Right?
Sorry,
I was about to say, she in 2018 she was earning that. In 2018, graduate students were earning even less than we're earning now, like percentage wise.
What?
Our raise never met inflation until like last year for the first time. Last year was the first time our raise matched inflation, and that's just because we unionized and like went completely ballistic with our union work. But it's
like, okay, you want to earn, like South Africa CEO, you want to earn, what is that? Let's say 2 million a year, but your top brass are still earning more, or they got to increase. You can't say the company is not making a profit. Sorry, guys, we're going to have to like lay off some people, or we're going to have to put you on short time. But the top guys are still taking their cut. If you're earning top and the rest of the employees are also earning above the rest, then okay. I don't care what you earn. I care what, as a whole organization, like what's the lowest paying job in your organization? It's this much. Okay. Then fair. Then the profits are being distributed fairly and accordingly. But
I think that's like such a bothersome thing about like, you know, market capitalism, free market capitalism, is that when these companies, you know, when these companies start tanking, their CEOs are still cashing bonuses. Like, you know, their chief of whatever and other, they're still cashing bonuses. Like when Volkswagen was being sued by basically every country in the world for their carbon emissions lies that they were telling, they were, you know, hemorrhaging money by the millions.
Yeah.
But their guys, they laid off factories, closed factories, but these people were still making their bonuses.
Because they knew the secrets, bruh. Because they knew the secrets. It's like, because they knew what actually went down.
Damn,
bro, I read.
I mean, that's what happened with our state-owned enterprises a few years ago. Like we were hemorrhaging money.
Yeah,
hemorrhaging money, but executives were still cashing bonuses.
I was about to say, but I didn't know what.
I waited for you for that one.
Which institutions maybe I was allowed to or not allowed.
No, it was ridiculous. Like you had state-owned enterprises like Eskom and Transnet that were tanking and were hemorrhaging money because they couldn't deliver services, and they said, "Yeah, we need a cash injection X and Y."
SAA is a prime example of
my
this.
God. SAA, we need to let go of that thing.
Imagine you had a company, right? And no matter how badly you performed, you would never go out of business. Imagine
the company wouldn't die, but you'd lay off employees.
Yeah, the company wouldn't die. That's a game of like Monopoly. It's weird. It's weird. I read about this company.
How do you guys feel about privatizing those things? Like having those entities privatized?
No, it needs to be split up in sections.
I don't fuck with privatization just because historically it's never been good for poor people. But I actually don't have a solution to offer. If the government that we have and any state body that's gonna come after this current government is gonna be just as shit. Like I have absolutely no like regard for the next generation of ANC people, but also for the current and next generation of DA people, the current and next generation of DFX.
DA is dead.
Those three are the only three that are like in the conversation in terms of electoral politics.
Yeah.
And if any of them come into power, I don't see how state-owned enterprises are going to thrive under any of them. I do know that the DA is like, no, I was gonna be wrong. Not just the DA. The ANC also pushes for privatization, like constantly.
Yeah,
Do
they
it in a
do.
more, they just do it in a less like overt way, I guess.
There's a
But
phone
they
factory that shut down now.
are capitalists now, like, you know. So
There was a cell phone manufacturing company in South Africa that shut down last week. It was the first locally made cell phone. Government put in hundreds and hundreds of millions of rands into it. They shut down after 2 years.
damn.
It was a cash cow.
I mean, how do you the thing is, how do you compete with Samsung, Huawei, and Apple?
Price?
The
price was cheap,
price
but just but I mean, it was
price very often is a turn off for people. If it's too low, people don't trust it.
But then we need to stop with materialism and branding and
yeah, but now that's a whole other project, Lee. That's like a
yes,
that's like a whole.
Our people are cut materialistic, my bro. Our people are, jeez, bruh. South Africans, they smart things. I was about to say, I read a thing not so long ago about a company in the 2008 financial crisis in the States. One of the big companies. I'll get it to you later. Instead of they were about to shut down, and they asked the CEO, okay, what do we do? It's like, there's only two ways we can survive now. We fire almost half our staff, right? Like over like 3,000 people, or we all suffer together. So they asked him, right, what does that mean? It's like, we're all gonna take voluntary unpaid leave 6 weeks. You can take it anytime. And that way we save. So the CEO 6 weeks is a shitload of money. Like, so that gets redistributed. You know what happened, bro? The most beautiful thing happened. Those who didn't need the money as much started giving their weeks to colleagues, bro. How beautiful is that? It's like Wilton can't take his 6 weeks off. Then I will say he can take bruh, when you allow the organization to organize itself, they know what's best for them. So they survived. They ran like that for 2 years. They survived. And he said his 6 weeks wasn't so bad because he's had investments and, you know, and when he saw the people on the ground starting to hand over weeks to each other, okay, you know, MK's mother is not so well, these kids, he can't be out of work. Each one's going to pitch in and give days, weeks, whatever you can.
Yeah.
He gave all his weeks away because he thought, shit, like he's out of touch with how people survive. When the company bounced back, bro, no one lost their job. Everyone was more productive because at the end of the day, they knew the company had their back. And that's what people want. They just want like to know when the shit hits the fan, like, you know, protect us, like, or like give us an option or try your best. And that was unheard of. Like organizations weren't doing that because the first thing to do is trim the fat labor force. That's the biggest cost to a company. And they took a different approach, and people got offered jobs from that company. They're like, nope, I'm staying here, but it's double your salary. Nope, I will stay here.
Yeah, bro.
Like, that is crazy shit, bro.
I was also sorry. I just thought of just as you're talking, I'm thinking more about Andrik's question about state-owned enterprises or privatization rather. And I wonder, like, I also, you know, to argue against myself regarding privatization, a lot of these state-owned enterprises are used as political playgrounds because there's vested interest by the state in those. There needs to be a mechanism whereby it is state-owned but independent of the state, and I don't know if that is plausible.
That's happening with Eskom right now.
Private, because here in the States, I am watching the tragedy of privatized electricity and gas companies, right? every few states has its own. In the Northeast, you have National Grid. In Texas, you have whatever. In
Yeah.
in different, and the like in Texas last year when they had that cold snap,
Yeah.
the whole power grid shut down because it was a private institution that had no oversight, no government oversight, no inspection,
No
nothing.
regulation. Yeah.
Liable to nobody. So all this shit was outdated, people dying from freezing to death, right? It was one of the worst things to watch because it was so preventable, easily preventable. So I'm coming from that side of things, like in terms of my view on privatization. But I do think there has to be a mechanism for it to be both state-owned, or rather overseen by state bodies or something like that. But it has to be independent of the state. It can't be a political playground every time
Yeah.
the party wants to curry favor in elections or something like that. You know what I mean?
But these bodies
I mean,
will only be as these bodies will only be as strong as the people who run it, bruh. The people are
Yeah.
influential as hell, because I know they wanted to split ESCOM into 3 parts.
Yeah,
A
being uncoupled
production,
now.
implementation, and distribution. So the mining, the mining, the coal, that shit, the production,
Coal now, my bro.
The
You
pro-
really need to get fucking coal now.
yeah, the production, which is like turbines, like turning into electricity, putting it into the grid. And then number 3, the distribution, the electric boxes, like how much people pay.
Yeah.
And one would be private, one would be government, and one would be, I don't know. And it's a thing of checks and balances, like keeping everyone in check, different, because you can't, how the hell you have one company that provides the entire electricity for a whole country, bruh?
That's changing now, Lee.
Yeah,
What's
The
that?
independent power producers are becoming active, and people are starting to buy electricity from them. The city of Cape Town now is planning, I think, in the next 10 years or so to, I don't quote me on the numbers, but it could be about 50-50. 50% ESCOM, 50% independent power producers. And that was the plan that was announced, I think, just before SONA last week. And then on SONA, the president announced that the regulations or the red tape for IPPs would become less. So people would be able to enter that market.
You see, I don't know, but I don't know if I trust that in a segregated city like Cape Town, independent power, like what is that gonna look like? What is that gonna cost? Like, because there's one thing that they're saying that the price is gonna be comparable or close or whatever, but like in reality, what is it gonna look like? You know, what part of the city is that grid gonna cover?
Yeah.
Are we gonna have one part of the city lit up and another part of the city in darkness, you know, for days or whatever?
Is it only for people who pay their rates or unemployed? Right. What happens to unemployed people?
Right. Exactly. And like, what's gonna happen?
There is still that.
What's gonna happen?
That thing where.
Okay, one at a time, please. Thank you.
Thank you, teacher.
No, I was gonna say, because there is still that thing where you are supposed to be allocated a certain amount of units per month, right? Or is that just in certain areas?
I don't know.
I don't know how that works, but I've heard about it. I've never seen it like
implemented, right?
So how's it monitored? Like,
I don't know.
I don't know.
You go collect 5 batteries. You go collect 5 batteries a day at the municipality.
I feel like we also need to give, like, you know, I think that we have people listening from like Germany and the States and whatever. And I think we like need to give people context also for the electricity crises in South Africa. But one of the crises is the fact that people have to steal electricity. They have to run cables from the main line, from the power poles to the houses, run a transformer, and then like spread the electricity among, you know, houses, shacks, dwellings, etc. And like we live in a country where people live in extreme excess and then just fucking abject poverty, bruh.
Fucking
And
like what they call that?
electricity is one of those things that like we need to. I feel like we should be organizing around that more and more.
Yeah.
Especially
At this point,
now,
it's a
like,
luxury.
independent power providers are becoming a thing, but also you only need like, I don't know, 6% of the country's land in solar panels to power the entire country.
Are you serious?
Bruh, it's a small number. It's like less than, it's under 10%. I think it's like around 6 or 7% of the like land mass of the country. You would need to. So you can pick a few spots in the Eastern Cape, a few spots in the northern,
bruh, where the sun is out.
Where where you get enough sun for enough parts of the year, and subsidize Eskom with that shit. But I don't know, bruh.
You see, but things
There's
like
too much
that,
money to be lost in coal,
exactly.
bruh. There's too much money to be lost.
I was about to say it.
Also, this fucking Russia relationship and the China relationship has us by the throat, bruh.
BRICS. Are we still in BRICS? Are we still part of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, this was like an hour-long complaint session about working class rights and unions, bruh.
And access to resources. Yeah, to privatize or to not privatize, bruh. I think.
Tough, bruh. Tough,
Yeah,
because on the one hand, if you privatize, there's no regulation. On the other side, if it's state-owned, if it keeps being state-owned,
self-interests.
It's just cronyism in effect.
Yeah.
And who suffers? The people.
We need to figure out a different organizing model for large groups of people, other than the way the state operates right now. It just doesn't. I don't know. It hasn't worked. It's not working. It's good in some senses, but like for the majority of people, life is extremely hard in countries like South Africa and Zim and Mozambique.
It's like Mad Max, bruh. It's just like
it's very hard. If you have to struggle for like clean water, or if you have to struggle for electricity or food or basic services like having a toilet that works, not a fucking outdoor concrete shell thing that you must go use
at a government school, bruh. Like, so my thing is like, you can just like how the state looks after their state-run places. You'll get in a country where you get schools that are posh, bruh, like enriching. You get another, for every one of those schools, you get 6 or 7 that is just bare bones. Like, the disparities are and like as we further new technologies and new innovation, that separation becomes larger and larger, I think, because it'll only be for the few privileged that those technologies will benefit and the rest get left behind.
Right. If you drive up to Salori's Pass, on the right-hand side of the road is Luandle. Directly, a township, a sprawling township, a vital community of people, a healthy community of people, but of people that are struggling. Every winter there's floods. Every
fires.
Every season the roofs blow off the school, the windows break, everything. Across the road there's a fucking Redem house, or one of those corporation private schools. They have residences on the school property. It's just so gross.
Aquatic center.
Have you seen how high those walls are?
Huh?
Have you seen how high those walls are outside the school?
Yeah, bruh. Looking like Israel up in that motherfucker.
Bruh, the one lied to you. I remember reading the lie to you asked, why do the kids that look like me go to this school and the other kids that look like that go to that school? A simple question, bruh. Why do kids who look like me come here and the other kids that don't look like me go there? This is primary school vibes. This is like grade 1 or 2.
Yeah.
How do you explain that, bro?
Can't
In a-
explain it.
How do you explain that in a rainbow nation? How do you explain?
That's why you unionize your primary school children, brother.
Yo.
Go back to the beginning of this call. You see me, continuity, bruh. Just like a union of 12-year-olds, bruh.
We demand better.
I wonder what they tell those lighties in schools like that, like in Redem and stuff, like, because they see it too. What do they teach them? Like, they should be told, like, you guys are going to be so well off in life. You now have a responsibility. You see those lighties across the road, you need to help them in whatever position you make it in life. Engineer, doctor, like, but I don't, like, but why didn't you do that, Dad? Like, why you want us to do it? Yeah, because we fucked up. It's up to you. Like that honest like, we have wealth, we have resources, we fucked up. You kids now need to learn better. Like that is like as honest as it gets. Like,
why would they? It's what's the purpose of wealth? Is to preserve it. Like, why you don't need to redistribute. Why would you? You send your lighty to a private school not to get a good education, because I mean the education that you get there is as good as public schools, right? You send your lighty to a private school like that to network.
Yeah, prestige.
To preserve what you already have. That's the point of them.
I feel sorry for school kids, guys. I feel real sorry for school kids, because that should be the equalizer. That should be the thing that no matter what fucked up thing I come from, this is a way where I can come out. But
sadly in South Africa, it's never been that. It's never been an equalizing space.
The barriers, even university, bro.
That and public hospitals have been the places where you really learn the segregation, the class separation and race segregation of our country, man, bro. My uncle was in hospital for 4 fucking days, untreated, unseen, no doctor. First of all, they overworked. I don't blame the doctors. They are extremely overworked with COVID. But even in a good year, they are overworked and understaffed, right? That man was laying in pain, bruh, suffering, didn't eat for 4 days.
No medicine, nothing, no drip, no.
But he couldn't get a doctor, all because he was at a public hospital. If he was at a private institution, he would have at least seen someone, you know? And I feel like this is like like really the marker of where we are as a country in terms of our struggle. Like you have to look at the conditions of schooling and the conditions of healthcare, because those are like, you know, the two major players.
Because it's like, okay, you can't afford private, you have to come public, you get what you get. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, well, where else are you gonna go? Like, so if I don't see you, if you don't get your medicine, what? You tough luck. It's gross, bruh.
Yeah.
There's no alternative for anyone here, bro. It's messy. It's cack, to be honest.
Kraaifontein Day Hospital is still lit though, bro, I must admit.
Of all the public institutions that I've been in, like public care institutions that I've been in, I will say Stikland is like,
it's lit. Yep,
it's one of the facilities that I've been into, like in terms of my mental health care. Getting the care there was really top notch. I don't know how those people managed to keep that ship running, because they also understaffed and overworked, but they do it.
But then there's so much money unlocked in the budget. Like for education, we have this much million this year. For healthcare, we have this much millions, and everyone's like, wow. And then you're like, where, bruh? Where's the money? Like, you know, this much for relief, this much for COVID stuff. Like, when people say the country is poor or there's no money, I'm like, no, bruh. There's fucking enough money in South Africa. There's plenty. That's just
Look, before we wrap up, because I need to wrap up, but because it's Sunday and I need to make lunch for me and my little family. But I will say, like, I feel like we are doing, not to like promote ourselves, but like we're trying to do a project, a land project, and I think that's our way of like getting into like care work. And I think like Lee's education project, and Drake needs to go, so I'm also gonna wrap it up. But I just want to say, like, I feel like if everybody has the capacity to do a little bit in their community,
they
can like slowly start building. And I think like union education can be one part of that, but also like general mutual aid work as a political kind of philosophy. Yeah.
Definitely. I think that's the future. We have to all do our bit.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying tuned to Chili and Custard podcast. If you have any questions or requests for topics that we can discuss in future, please hit us on YouTube or on Instagram at JXC Podcast, and on YouTube at Jelly and Custard Podcast. We're also on Twitter, and if you find any of our pages, our links are there to follow.
We'll be on TikTok soon.
We'll be on TikTok soon with the TikTok master. Thank you for listening, and hope you enjoyed this episode. Cheers. Bye.
Yes, bye.